welcome back, and this is my favorite part of the masterclass because these are some rare recordings that I was able to collect at actual corporate screening events in New York City. And I'm going to give you 5 or so examples of actual screenings that took place of me using this true advocacy process at a corporation in the context of a health fair and delivering massage therapy. Now, this is just one scenario, but again, this very organically shows the process, whether they're calling you on the phone or you're following up on the Facebook leads or whatever. When you make that first contact with someone, no matter how you do it, this is sort of organically and expandedly a way to look at it. So I want you to really listen to these examples, and I will be interspersing commentary to let you know what to look out for. So that's what these are about, and you're about to hear the first one. The first example is an example of the future close. And I know this is the, quote, non-close of my program, but I want to start with it because I had let you know that perhaps it's more important for you to learn when not to close than when to close. And it's very fortunate that you're going to hear this recording because, as I mentioned in the chapter, The Future Close, that when you do the future close technique and you take the close off the table and you don't recommend that the person follow up just now and you make alternate recommendations, what you'll find very often is the person will inquire. Even if it's you end off the screening and the person either calls back or comes back, as it happens to me in many of these corporate settings. This person right at the screening, as I was finishing and telling her not to come in just now and giving her the recommendations on how to monitor the problem, she started inquiring and taking interest. And that's something that I want you to pay attention to in this. What I'd like you to pay particular close attention is the ebb and flow back and forth. How I continually showed interest, not only by asking questions and inquiring and seeming interested, but also in how I acknowledged her, how I reacted to things, and the things that I told her, I didn't force on her and tell her that was wrong with her, but rather, I presented some things that she didn't know about before that made her wonder if she had them. And you will see, this is the prime case right here, how just as I was about to let her go, how she said, "Let me ask you a question," and the screening doubled in length, and we ended up with a close after all. So you're going to see my future close script and how I was steering her away from the appointment and how she began to reach a little harder and start inquiring and become even more interested, not only in what I had to say, but in herself. She started asking me questions about herself. I want you to get how I put her attention on her, and I kept my attention on her. So both of our attention was on her, and it made her introvert. And this is how I got the close. This is what you have to master, and if you can master it, very oftentimes you'll get what happened here. Now, this one is a little long. It ran a little long. It was about 15 minutes, but it was my first screening of the day. I had no one sitting in the massage chair yet. It was a little slow, and I took my time with this one. And the payoff is huge. So I present to you my screening with Stephanie.
Yeah, just fill that out. They haven't even started yet, so get your ready first.
Awesome. Okay.
All right, cool. Let me just have a quick look-see. Is there anything we need to know before we give you your massage?
No, I don't think so. No
Injuries, accidents, illnesses, anything like that. Stephanie, I'm Frank, by the way.
Right, nice
to meet you. I'm the doctor's assistant, and Dr. Klein is a chiropractor. Have you ever been a chiropractor before?
I have.
It says you have. What did you go for?
Yeah, when I was at a really desk job, I guess I was hunching over.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, I hurt my back. I don't know, it was like triggered by, I played basketball in school, this was when I was in school, and then I just jumped and went down really weird, and then my back just started hurting.
Wow. How long ago was that?
Let's see, I guess a year ago.
A year ago?
Now it's okay.
That
now
recent?
I'm like, yeah.
Sure.
Now it's alright, but...
Okay, but you had gone for that, you went, had a
yeah, and they like cracked my back, it was interesting.
Yeah. Okay, but it seemed to work out well.
No, yeah, and then icing it, yeah, and
okay.
yeah, I'm back, good.
Okay.
Okay, let's take a break and see what we've learned so far. And you should have a downloadable copy of Stephanie's survey. You can see what boxes she checked off. She checked off chiropractic and acupuncture as she gets or has had in the past. And as you can see, I questioned that. Now, I always want to question that for two reasons. Number one, I want to find out what they went for. That's first and foremost. But number two, I want to know if they're getting it now. I'm very conservative about that, and I'm very respectful of other docs, as you should expect other docs to be respectful of you. So it's very good for you to have that courtesy, and very oftentimes I will not do the close if the person is perfectly satisfied. As a matter of fact, one of the screenings today had a gentleman who is seeing someone not near his work. So it was prime target for me to go and say, oh, it's more convenient to go near work. However, he was across the river in New Jersey, and he goes to his chiropractor who's a longtime friend of his. So I don't mess with a relationship like that. And in that case, I'm going to give them our card and let them know, hey, we're right by work, so if you're ever in a pinch and you need us, plus we do other disciplines here. And I let him know that so that it's his choice when he wants to do that. Also, who knows? Maybe his friend's close to retirement or sells his practice or moves away or whatever. We want him to be a future close, and even a person who's completely satisfied could be a future close. So I found out that she had very, very recently seen the chiropractor, even though it was within the last year and she's about due. She said it's fine now. So that actually sort of leveled out any of the symptoms that she was talking about. Now, even though under the where do you carry your stress section, she said shoulder tightness, neck tension, tight upper back, and tiredness, those things are things that she means. The answer to this question is when you're stressed out, where do you tend to carry it? It doesn't mean you're getting it now, so don't be fooled by that. The center section of the survey has the actual symptoms, and she only had headaches. So that's what I'm going to get into with her next, as you'll see in a moment here, where I went with this. But at this moment, I stopped because I want you to see that actually I made the decision here. She's a non-close. She's a future close, and I'm going to go to my non-closing script here, but I'm going to prod around and see if there's anything else I can find out, because there's a lot more questions to ask. And at the conclusion of that, I will decide whether I'm going to close her or future close her and go from there. Now, I had made the decision, which you're about to see, that I'm going to do the future close. And something miraculous happened, which very often happens, and that is that the thing turned around. And I'm going to show you that in a moment. So see where I went from there. We're now going to take up the headaches, and notice that I abandoned any pursuit of her as a patient at this point, and that's a key lesson for you to learn from this particular screening. I abandoned that pursuit. It's very important. The person builds trust and respect for you by doing that, and it's very important, and you will see how it pays dividends at the end of this screening when I try to unclose her and she tries to reclose me. So listen to the rest of the screening here. Let's see what happens.
And then headaches, you were getting them before that or only since that, or?
I just, I get headaches often.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then shoulder and neck, this is where you tend to just carry stress, like physically?
Yeah, and I also work out, especially when I lift that. Also, yeah, I just did back day yesterday.
Sure.
So
What kind of workouts do you do? Like, are you, is it high intensity? Are you doing like CrossFit level, like flipping truck tires, or are you
more just heavy
impact?
weights and yeah, cardio. Heavy weights and cardio.
What kind of cardio do you do?
Whatever my gym really offers that
Okay,
day. I go to the classes.
I see.
It's
So
a lot of
just-
jumping.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you said basketball, because it's one of what I call my big three, right?
yeah.
Basketball, volleyball, and running all involve what we call up and down, right? And when you go up and then you come down, it's gravity in your body weight, right? And so your spine acts like a big shock absorber, right? If you were to put a fast motion camera on your back and then you slowed it down and you watched, you'd be shocked at how much compression actually happens. And that's very stressful on the spine, yeah. So there was that. And then did you do sports like earlier than that, or was it only a year ago that you were playing basketball? Like, did you do sports when you were younger? Were you?
Yeah. When I say basketball, I mean like for a class. I don't mean like very competitive.
Oh, okay. You weren't competitive.
No. Like when I was younger, I played I played sports, but
Right. What kind of sports did you do?
I did tennis, basketball.
Okay, basketball.
Those are my two main ones.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Never really had any problems with it, though, anything like that.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a quick break here. I want you to see what I did with her here. By prodding around with the sports and giving her the talk about the spine being a big shock absorber and how much compression happens from up and down type of things, which is a very good thing to relate. I love when they say one of what I call my big three, basketball, volleyball, running. I prodded around in that, but if you notice, I didn't tell her that's what's wrong with her. I told her what happens when I say you, I mean people. So by telling her what actually happens, and I have already built credibility with her, it's starting to add up in her head. She's starting to wonder a little bit, gee, I wonder if that might be a problem or at least a possibility for me. These are the things that they tend to start wondering as you bring these things up, but you cannot accuse them of having that happen to them. You just lay it there and you let them wonder about it. If you notice, she's been agreeing with me straight along, yep. She sees that. Well, she's going to start wondering if maybe, and if you notice, I prodded a little further. I took her out of the present and said, let's expand the timeline and go in past. Did you play sports before? So that's why I went into that with her there. Now let's see where I take it from here.
Okay, well, the only reason I'm telling you this is because, and maybe your chiropractor let you know this, and maybe he didn't, but, the thing is that it's really imbalances that we look for, right? So the imbalances structurally, they occur throughout your life. They go all the way back to being born, okay? Being born is extremely stressful on your body, okay? Absolutely. And what happens is, well, think about it. You come out head first, right? There's nowhere else to grab except the head, right? The doctor's grabbing you by the head, there's twisting, there's pulling, there's all kinds of stuff. So by the time you're into clean air and you're in your mother's arms, it's a train wreck, right? So there's that kind of imbalances accrue. Then you're learning how to walk and you stumble over, maybe it doesn't hurt, you don't cry, you don't feel any pain from it, but these imbalances start to accrue throughout your life. And they lay there dormant, and the only problem is you don't feel pain as a result of them. Right. So you don't really know they're there. Now, there is one way they show themselves that we tend to ignore because we don't associate it. Do you know what that is? Posture.
Oh, yes.
And what did you say you do at your desk, right? You said that you tend to hunch over. So posture is actually a signal that there are imbalances there, right? If something goes off in balance in the basic structure, it's going to show up in weird posture, slouching, shoulders that roll forward, maybe a twist or something like that. As a matter of fact, I see a little shift.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I
think I already know,
Yeah, I see that. And then your head, back this way, there's a little tilt to it. Yes. There's a few things going on there. So those imbalances. But you're feeling pretty good lately.
Yeah.
Okay, now this was a key part of the screening. If you notice what I did here, I introduced the subject of imbalances and I tied it into posture a bit. And then I just very gently pointed in her direction by noticing something obvious about her and also poking around to just test the waters with her to see if she'd bite on a posture issue, and she obviously did. So it was the right time to point it out. But if they don't bite on it, it's not the right time. So this is very much a judgment. These are subtleties that if you had just listened to this screening, you might not have picked up. But I realized what could happen based on the rhythm of the conversation. If you notice, there's a back and forth, there's an ebb and a flow here. There's a rhythm to this conversation. This is part of what you have to master. You have to understand that that's what I'm doing. I'm establishing that. I'm getting her to talk, and I'm also reacting to what she says appropriately, and I'm also acknowledging her when necessary, and then questioning her further on things that either I don't understand or that I want her to elaborate on because I want her to realize more about it. What I'm doing is I'm getting her to realize. Now, I'm still making the judgment call here to go to the non-close because of what she said earlier. So I'm about to go into the future close scripting here that you will see, and I want you to pay particular attention not only to what I said in this section leading in, but to what happens as a result of me doing the future close speech. Let's see what happens.
Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a recommendation because, listen, all I wanted to do is give you sort of a new awareness. Okay, I'm not going to recommend you see the doctor now. I do think you should get those imbalances rechecked. just to keep on top of it. You're pretty active athletically, even though you're not doing intense whatever, but I mean, just lifting the weights and all that kind of stuff. You know, you're a good young age now, so it's not like, you know, you're old or anything, but at the same time, now is the time to like look to keep those things ahead.
Yeah.
You know? So what I'm going to tell you to do is just look, keep an eye on it now. Okay, look for any little symptoms or whatever, but now that you kind of know this and about the imbalances, the conditions tend to do one of three things. It's either going to get better, stay the same, or get worse, right? So if it does the first one, if things like improve,
Yeah.
I'll let you pick the time period, 2 weeks, 2 days, 2 months, whatever. But if they improve, don't bother calling us. And whatever you're doing, do more of it because it's working, right? Okay. But if it stays the same or it gets slightly, you know, things start to decline a little bit, call us. What we'll do is he'll actually evaluate. This is for him to find the imbalances. They have to be located first. I'm not recommending you for chiro, physical therapy, acupuncture, like nothing. Not even stretches, exercise, yoga, whatever. We couldn't possibly presume to say, well, this is what you do for that until somebody really isolates it. It sounds like no one's isolated. So what he'll do is he'll find it for you in 20 to 30 minutes. He'll give you a full report of what he found, this is what's causing it, and then he'll make recommendations. Might be things you can do on your own. Maybe therapies we do in the office, we do a lot. We do all the therapies combined. You know, at least you'll have an answer. You'll know what's causing it, and you'll know what you can do about it. And it's up to you what you want to do after that. We'll comp the visit for you, and then they'll invite you. That's a 30-minute full body massage on us as well. So just saying, and we're at Broadway at 39th.
Cool.
Okay?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
This might sound, well, it's related, but
Sure.
I feel like a lot of my stress is on my lower half, like my hips area. Yeah, but like, so it's connected, that's connected to your back.
Absolutely.
And I feel like I have a tight back. Is that all
How does it
connected?
manifest itself when you're describing, like, is it like your hips just feel like, some people feel like, you know, when your pants aren't pulled up all the way, and you kind of like, some people feel their hips are like that. Some people feel they're off kilter, or some people
I know,
just feel
I think that's really what my...
Is it?
Yeah, like,
you have the
that's
perception,
that way.
like, do hems hang like different on you, or your pant legs seem to like not match up?
I haven't noticed.
You
Normally
haven't
I
noticed
get legs that are longer because I'm just tall, so I just do tall and that's it.
Right.
So I haven't noticed
Sure.
when they're short.
Yeah.
But it's something that I'm really struggling with, especially at the gym. That's really, like pissing me off because when I'm bending down and then I feel it like here, I don't like that.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely not normal for sure. It definitely is a sign of imbalance, and you're giving me a symptom. Now, how does it manifest itself, though, other than the off-balance kind of thing? Is there any pain or tension in any particular lower area, or are you getting anything down the legs, numbness, tingling?
Yeah, it's really like legs and like inner thighs, yeah.
When do you usually notice it? Like when
I'm working out, or
like cardio working out, or when you're lifting weights, or all of it?
Anything, yeah. When like lifting my legs and anything. I don't know if it's related. I feel like it really stems from my hips, though.
Yeah, for sure. Well, but see, that's what I'm talking about imbalances. Your basic structure, the spine is kind of the center of the universe, right? So your spine, in your lower spine, that's where your hips connect up. There's an area there. I'm not going to get into technical terminology, but it connects.
Right.
So if that spine is out of line anywhere along it, or if it has any kind of imbalances in it, you're going to see it in the hips being off. So that, again, is a symptom, and any pain, numbness, tingling, the nerves are very sensitive in there, and you have something called the sciatic nerve in your low back. That's where your spinal cord kind of splits in two, and it goes through the hips and all the way down the legs, right?
Okay.
So if you have anything happening in the lower back, do you feel any pain ever here in the low back, or get it tight or tension, or is it just...
I can't tell if it's from working out like abs or just tension.
Where are you pointing to? Show me where you're pointing to. Right in the center, right here. Yeah, gotcha.
All right, as you can see, so far, after the future close, this turned into a new screening. She said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I want you to note that this almost counts as your second contact. In fact, let's just call it a second contact. This is contact number 2 because I already future closed her, but the future is now. She actually was interested enough. I inflated her interest just enough for her to ask a lot of questions. Now, one of the things I want you to note in this portion of the screening, as I was listening to it back, I realized what I'm really doing, there's also an ebb and flow or a rhythm to balancing education and questioning and self-examination. self-interest, right? Self-awareness. So we do a little education on general anatomy, and then we do a little self-awareness. So if you notice, I'll educate on, well, the sciatic nerve, it's where the spinal cord splits and kind of goes into and goes through your hips and all the way down your legs through the knees and through your ankles, feet, and toes. And problems can occur in the lower back that can interfere and give you problems in the legs and so on, right? You give a little anatomy lesson there. You don't point it out in them and say, that's your problem. You just give them basic anatomy. But then if you notice, I go right back into questioning. So tell me, do you ever get numbness or tingling in your legs, or some appropriate question on that? You go into a line of questioning and you keep prodding them with questions until you find the thing that gets them to start telling their story again. And again, this is all about getting people to tell their story. The more they're telling you stories, the more you have them interested, and the more likely you are to not only close them, but to get those vital 3 things. You don't just want that appointment. You want that appointment, but you want them to show up for that appointment, know exactly why they're coming, and be interested in what they're about to find out as a result of your ROF. And as you can see here, I have her so primed that she originated screening number 2 here. So we're well into screening number 2. I want you to see where it goes after this, but I just wanted to make that commentary. Note that ebb and flow of what occurred here and how I did a little bit of education, then a little bit of questioning and self-awareness, then a little bit of education, a little more questioning and self-awareness, and the person will start to conclude themselves. Remember, people diagnose themselves. They go to Google to find answers on the internet, and they make these decisions that you cannot combat when you talk to them. What you're doing now by educating them and giving them more to think about is the same thing that Google did for them, except you're expanding their awareness such that Google's explanations are no longer good. They now had an anatomy lesson, and they now can be more self-aware, have more questions and more interest, and now look for those answers, and guess who's there to give it to them. And that's exactly what we're doing right here. You notice I'm not giving answers. I'm just letting her draw conclusions on her own. Let's see where that takes us right now.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to reconsider what my recommendation is. This is what I think you should do, okay? Now, I already told you we're going to comp a visit for you. So
Yeah.
don't have to worry about insurance, none of that. I want you to actually see Dr. Klein. It's only 20 to 30 minutes, and we're only
By subway or walking?
No, we're walking. I walked here from the office.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like 3 blocks up and like over to Broadway. So it's Broadway at 39th, right? So, and it's 20 to 30 minutes. We deal with all corporate people, so it's very in and out. But what I was going to say is we will, he'll look you over. You can come on lunch. You can come after work because we're open late every day. You choose what you want to do. And at the end of that, like I said, he'll give you the findings. This is the report of what we found. This is what's causing it. This is your imbalance. And then he's going to make recommendations. Again, might be things you can do on your own, right?
Okay.
But maybe therapies we do in the office, we do lots. We do massage, we do everything. So.
Now, what have I done here? What I've done is essentially I've moved to the close, which is the recommendations. It's not really legitimately a close because this is not a sales pitch, if you've noticed. What I'm actually selling her on at this point is taking my recommendation, not selling her on an offer. Get that distinct difference right now. I'm not selling her an offer. As a matter of fact, an offer is the favor I'm doing to get her further interested in following my recommendations. I want you to get that key difference. If you have to shut this off and think about it for a minute, go over it a few times with yourself and think about the difference between those two. An offer like, hey, look, I have this offer, it's exam and x-rays, it's normally $250, it's now only $50, or it's free, or whatever, is a sales pitch. It's an offer. And an offer is something someone has the option of refusing. But recommendations are something someone looks to an expert for. And she's very much at this point, if you can tell, she's looking for direction from me, so much so that she asked me to continue the screening and start screening number 2. So what have I done here? I double and triple sold her on taking the recommendation I didn't even fully make yet. I'm about to make it now. But I'm fully selling her as I go on each step of this process. And the reason now I'm moving to a close, an actual now close, is because that I've determined throughout this process that her interest level in the results of that ROF is sufficiently high that I know I can not only get her to make an appointment, but do those 3 magical things. Show up for that appointment, know exactly why she's coming, and be very interested in the results of that appointment. And that's where we're going with it right now. Now, there will be more closes as you go, so watch what happens here.
Look, what do you say we just have them look at you? I really would feel better if that's what we did, because I think that's really what your next step is. And again, just to find out we're not going to treat you. Yeah? Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me this, Steph, would you be more of a lunchtime gal after workout, given where we are and how long the visit would be?
You said 30 minutes, right?
20 to 30, yeah.
20 to 30. Probably during the day works.
Yeah, okay. Most people come on lunch. They
Yeah.
don't want to come after work. So, okay, are you early lunch, late lunch?
Late lunch.
Late lunch. I'm a late lunch guy. I like a short lunch. Even afternoon.
Yeah.
What's late for you? Two?
Two.
Okay. I can do a 2 on any given day. We don't break for lunch until 3 because of the late lunch people. So I can do 2:30.
Okay.
And most people want early lunch, so I'm pretty flexible. Now, today's Friday, so we're going into next week. I could pretty much give you any day if you did 2:30, and I can give you any day except Wednesday if you did 2. So, you want to pick one of those?
Yeah. Just thinking the schedule in my head.
Okay, quick little note here with what she does. Because she was starting to get a little distracted, okay, this is like the distracted level of the road to chiropractic advocacy, right? When they get distracted state of mind, I start to put her attention on her schedule, so she starts to get back into her stressful life. The good news is you get them to do it while they're standing in front of you. You never take your attention off of them, and you make sure you keep them in the conversation with you. This is very crucial to this step. My eyes are on her that entire time of silence. She's looking through her phone. She's seeing all the appointments she has, and she's thinking about all the work she has to do, and it's all coming back to her. She had a nice little vacation in her few minutes with me, but now it started to come back in. Mind you, she's not trying to back out on me at this point, and you have to develop the sensitivity to be able to decipher whether or not they're backing out or they're generally getting into that distracted state of mind, starting to fall out of wants to no cause into a distracted state of mind. So to keep her there, I make it less of a burden and less pressure for her to accept the appointment. So I show her that it's possible that even with her stressful life, she can keep this appointment. Watch what I do right here.
How do you feel about walk-ins? Just because my schedule does.
Say again?
Walk-ins? Do you rather have?
No, pretty much, because the way we keep a tight schedule like that, we're in a corporate neighborhood, it's all corporate people that come to us. Here's what I suggest, okay?
Yeah.
If you're a little funny about what's my schedule, don't schedule it for Monday or Tuesday. Do this. Let's put it toward the middle or the end of the week.
Yeah.
And then that gives you plenty of time to call us and change it. And even if you forget, Ashley's going to call you the evening before. And you're like, oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I was going to change it. She can move you around in the schedule. We only have so many comps available, just so you know. That's really what it is. We're not a free clinic. And we go to these. This is my second event this week. I have a bunch next week.
Oh, okay.
Right? So what I'm saying is grab one of the comps, let's schedule you, and then you could move it as needed. You could literally call them as of this afternoon. Once you're in the book, they can move you around.
Okay, so let's do a Thursday.
Do Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
And
that
what
would
do
be
you
the 6th or 7th. What's today? The 1st?
Today's the 1st, yes.
So it's 8, that's the 7th. So Thursday, 3/7.
Yes.
And you want to come 2 or 2:30 that day? I have both. Really doesn't matter because you can change it, but let's pick whichever one. Take your best guess. You want to go 2 and then...
I'm rethinking that maybe... See, the time thing's really weird for me.
Yeah, what's that?
I sometimes have a phone call at 1:30 and I don't know.
It's totally fine, and all I'm saying is we deal with this all the time. They're really going to roll with it, honestly. If you call them up and say, I have to move it, or can you take me earlier, or whatever, because my schedule just changed today.
Okay.
Ashley's a master of the schedule. I'm just not. They don't allow me to do that, because they're like, look, you only have so many comps, and, and I have to kind of adhere to that. So,
okay, that makes sense. 24 hours in advance, what is the cancellation fee or policy?
There's no cancellation policy. I mean, don't blow it off, right?
No, yeah, I want to give you ample notice.
Yeah, but I'm saying even if you called her the morning of and said, look, I had a meeting come up, I have a phone call I have to do at that time, can I come in? And she'll be like, well, can you come in at, or whatever, and you guys just hash it out, you pull out your schedule and do it from there.
Okay, let's do 2:30.
Okay, good. So.
Okay, now you might be thinking, Frank, are you crazy? Why would you do that? My biggest pet peeve is people changing schedules, not showing up for appointments when they're expected. I'm setting some ground rules and I'm letting her know it's okay, that we're willing to work with her. I'm showing her how much we want to help her and that we're there to hold her hand. You have to understand that when people blow off appointments, there's a lot more involved. They're more distracted, and you didn't show you understood that and you're willing to work with that. They think when they don't show, when they no show on you, they know it's a bad thing, and you will never see or hear from them again. I want to establish future communication, especially if there's going to be any reason for them to cancel. I want to make it safe for them to talk to me about it and to still desire what we said, and to at least give me the opportunity, if they fall out of the mood they're in now, to put them back in the mood in a subsequent conversation, even if by phone. So realize what I've done with her here is not pushed her to make the appointment. I didn't twist her arm to do that. I just showed her that, look, her considerations considered, it's not a problem. There's no cancellation fee. And even if you call us the morning of, what am I doing? I'm not telling her to cancel. I'm telling her it's not only okay, but I'm actually establishing it's safe for her to call us and cancel, that we're going to be very understanding if she does that. Because guess what? The thing you're most upset about is not the cancellation. It's the cancellation without the opportunity to reschedule. So you want to make it safe for them. You want to give them so much information that they're really interested in talking to you, so that even if they cancel, they'll still want to continue with this or reschedule or whatever. And you're increasing your likelihood, and especially your likelihood of talking to this person in the future. Remember, we established that in the very beginning as the first order of business, to get their contact information, to be able to talk to them a second time before we went into anything with them on the screening. That's the most important part, and we've accomplished that here. Let's see the conclusion of this.
2:30 p.m. Like I said, it's no pressure. We're not going to treat you that day. I just want to really make that clear.
We're just doing the analysis.
He's going to do the analysis, and he's going to give you his findings and his recommendations.
Okay.
And then it's up to you what you want to do after that. I already gave you that card, so that card says what I said. We're going to comp the visit for you, that little first
Do I
little
need to
circle.
bring this?
You don't have to. They know. We're going to comp the visit for you. You won't get the massage that day. They'll invite you back for a subsequent visit. It's 39th and Broadway, 1410 Broadway.
Thank you.
And then... now, you won't even need your insurance card for that visit. It's literally like we charge nothing. The only thing I recommend, have your insurance card on you, because if he makes recommendations for any kind of treatment we do and you're interested, we still don't treat you. The next step is actually we call your insurance plan, we give them your date of birth, we have to give them the diagnosis. A lot of people don't realize that their coverage is oftentimes diagnosis dependent. Right?
Yeah, that makes
So we give
sense.
them the diagnosis, we give them whatever the recommended treatments are. They explain to us how they pay, and then we explain it to you. This way there's no misunderstandings or... I didn't know I had a copay, or what's this like from my insurance company. Okay, and we're going to give you a massage today, but before you do that, can you give Ashley your information in the computer? She's also going to call you the evening before to remind you, so...
I just want to make a quick note here, because this is something that's not covered in the masterclass chapters, and it's one of those subtleties. You'll have many subtleties during these screening demonstrations, but Stephanie had filled out the form but had only given us her full name, her date of birth, and her insurance. She didn't fill in the email or the cell phone. I don't take the person's address. I only like the data from them that allows me to contact them in the future. So don't worry about having an address field. And if you're using my Where Do You Carry Your Stress form, which you should be, you will only collect the data that you need. I have name, date of birth, company for when it's with corporate insurance, and I have an explanation that goes along with that: email, cell phone, work phone. And that's it. But oftentimes at these events, the person will only fill out their name and maybe their date of birth, and nothing else. And I don't make a big deal of that in the beginning, because until I've gotten the person to trust me, why argue over it? Because you're only making it look like you're trying to contact them in the future. So I go on with the screening, and as I interest them, if they become a prospect, I can now ask them for their contact information at the end, which I did here. If you notice, I didn't make mention of it at all throughout this entire screening until the end, until we had the appointment, until I closed her and closed her again and closed her again, handled all of her distracted considerations. got her enthusiastic about making the appointment and confident that she could balance it with her busy schedule and that we would make that easy for her and be there for her to help her with that. Then and only then did I ask her for at least her cell phone number. She wasn't comfortable giving the email, and that's totally fine too. We take what we can get, and the cell phone is usually the best way to get in touch with a person, text them, call them. And one of the great ways to get the cell phone number, if they fill out the whole form and they leave the cell phone number blank, which essentially is the most important piece of information, you just let them know that confirmation calls are made the evening before. Say we do our calls in the evenings, and could you please give us your phone number? Don't say your cell phone, whatever, just point to the field and say, could you give us your number, so that she could go ahead and do that. So this actually provides that explanation. It shows them that this is not a marketing thing. You're not going to trouble them or bother them, and you only pointed out one instance where you're going to use it, and that's to confirm the appointment you already convinced them to take you up on. So just a quick note there, and make sure you adhere to that.
Is that fine? Do you need my email?
Yeah. So, she also, if you have email, either personal or work, she usually does a text, a call, and an email, and whichever way you respond to is fine for her. But you don't have to provide it if you don't want.
I rather.
Okay, fine. She'll give you a call there. Absolutely. Okay. She'll probably send you a text and give you a call. So I'll hang on to that.
Thank you.
And I'll walk you out here and we'll get you a massage.
Cool.
And we'll definitely get you an answer this evening.
All right, and that's the complete screening, and as you can see, this was actually 2 screenings in one. It took about 15 minutes to do. I had extra time. I also will talk about in a subsequent lecture how I have my massage therapist totally trained. All the New York City massage therapists that are assigned to work with me all know how to operate with me because I've indoctrinated them since the very beginning. And when they see I'm in an intense, extended conversation with someone, what they'll be doing if someone else comes up, they'll direct them to fill out the survey form. And if they see the person whose turn it is that I'm still screening, if they see I'm still screening them, they know to take the next person who filled out the form without interrupting me at all. And I really have it as a well-oiled machine. So I was able to really get this screening done smoothly during that time. In subsequent screenings that you'll be sitting in on, you'll hear me get a little bit interrupted, like for a survey or a pen, or the massage therapist just making sure that I wasn't just about done, that she could still take this gentleman. I quickly gave her an acknowledgement, but I kept the person in the conversation with me. And as you can see here, I just kept her in the conversation with me. I kept making it safe. I kept letting her not be distracted by her work and not letting her work interfere with her resolve to get this answer that I promised her, because I know she's interested, and I only went for the close because I know that's the most important thing to take away from what you just heard, is that I knew that it was time to go to the close. If it wasn't, I would have gone back and future closed her. But I closed her. I closed her because she had actually taken interest and started dictating some questions. And she started getting curious about herself. I had raised her self-awareness enough that she started asking questions. That's a symptom of interest. When they start asking you questions, when they start telling you their story, it's a symptom of interest, and you know you have them there. So you have to keep them in it. And if they start to get distracted, you'd rather it be while they're still standing with you rather than after they make the about face and walk away from you. So I take everything up in this screening. You may say, well, that takes an awful long time. Well, the typical screening doesn't take 15 minutes. This was 2 screenings in one. So technically it was 7.5 minutes to be able to close her. But the point is that you would rather put the quality in now to get that quality arrival, because when they end up in your ROF chair, not only are you a way better closer than you are an arrival confirmer, but this process will make that person sitting in your ROF chair way more interested than anyone you've ever seen sit in that ROF chair before you. And I guarantee you, your percentage close rate on treatment plans will go up, your percentage compliance will go up, your longevity of patients will go up, and so will your referrals, because they will respect you and they'll have been brought through this process from the very first contact with you. And that will help them in their first contact with with others. So I hope this screening helped. The very next lecture will be this screening in its entirety without the commentary. I'm going to do that on every single one. So you have the first one with interruptive commentaries throughout, and the second one will be the screening just so you can hear it. So once you have the theory that goes along with it, you can hear the screening again with new ears. And make sure you check out the next one.